Here's the old game chamber.
I don't miss it at all.
No? Oh, I'm surprised nobody's took it on. It's a prime... The heck of that. With nothing in. It always looks huge when they're empty though, eh? But it was tiny once everything's in there. What are we doing today, Tim?
Today we're making cork rounds into hills.
What the hell's a cork round?
Cork round is something you'd buy for your turtle or your lizard. Sold in pet stores. It's cork bark from the cork tree. It's probably a more technical term for that. This is the stuff that they grind up to make bulletin boards. It's renewable, so it grows back after they peel it off the tree. I don't know how long that takes. I'm assuming it's not quick. But it's pretty expensive, but it really sells the rock effect without much work, and we're only going to basically use an inch at a time, so this is actually going to be 20 hills, give or take.
The whole piece was 60...
This was $65.
$65, but remember that's Canadian fund bucks as well. So
it's Canadian funds. It's about $50 a pound Canadian.
Yeah,
a lot more expensive than just styrofoam, but it's actually pretty tough stuff.
And you're gonna get a whole table's worth out of a piece that size, right?
We're gonna paint it back close to this color, but kind of rock-like, and that way, again, if it gets a dent or a little chip, you probably won't notice. It's not a big deal. It's also still pretty light. Still pretty tough.
How did they get it off the tree in one piece?
We've been trying to figure that out. They've got a split here, but it doesn't go all the way down, so we're not sure.
It's magic stuff.
I'm assured that it is renewable, so let's figure it out.
First things first, we needed to get a straight edge that we were going to be able to make the cuts from. So it was over to the trusty bandsaw, where we just took a centimetre off to give us a nice flat edge. And then we had to do a bit of a makeshift jig using a few random bits of wood and a couple of clamps so that we could measure an inch. An inch seems to be just about right for this, really. You could go thicker, you could go thinner. But from the bit of testing that we've done, an inch thickness seems to be just about perfect for most scales of miniatures. And just because we've had a few people moan that we always seem to use a bandsaw, we thought we'd show you it's quite possible to cut this stuff with a multitude of equipment. A quick check there wasn't any creepy crawlies hiding in any of the holes, although we think it's treated when it goes from a pet shop, to be honest with you. And then we were going to lay it out how we wanted. If you're buying something similar to this, you can do two pieces next to each other like that to get a smaller island, or you can use multiple pieces. Here we're going to use 3 of them together to make slightly larger ones. You could even use 4 or 5 pieces to give you some really larger pieces. Then we're going to place those down onto some hardboard, and just using a Sharpie, we're going to record where it sits. With the same Sharpie, we're going to mark the corners that meet each other with some little numbers on them there. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to mark the same corners on the hardboard so that we know where to place those pieces back once it's cut. Once you've got the outline there, you're going to go back around it and do around about a centimetre, half an inch or so, all the way around, which is going to be your cut line, just getting it a little bit closer on the internal corners there where the wood is a little thinner. Again, to the trusty bandsaw, just to let you all know, you don't really need a bandsaw for a lot of stuff we do here. It's just that we have a workshop here at the store and these things are there for us to use, and it makes quick work of this kind of stuff. But there really is lots of different ways you can cut this stuff out, and if you really haven't got any sort of power tools, you could most likely use foam board instead here that can be cut with a regular craft knife. But just to really rub it in, we're going to smooth the edges of this one with a belt sander. Once it's all sanded down nice and smooth and around the edges, we're going to place it down, just make sure it all fits nicely, and then settle on where it goes, again using a Sharpie to outline it. Then using the Sharpie line as a guide, you're going to take a hot glue gun and put some hot glue in the area. Now, as always, Don't use hot glue. Hot glue sucks. We don't use hot glue. We're better than that. Give it a good press down into the not hot glue. And once it's holding, you can turn it over. And if you're one of those people that use hot glue, you can use a little bit to go around the inside here for an extra bit of stability. We're not going to do that because we're not idiots. We don't use hot glue. And then our old friend Spackle is coming out. This is still the same tub that we dyed brown from the very first project we did. It's crazy. This stuff goes really quite far. Using a bit of lightweight Spackle, then we've used a little bit of wood stain here to give it a browner look so that if it chips, it's not so noticeable. It doesn't have to be crazy neat, just help smooth out the wood there into the cork. Then it's going to have to dry, so we'll pick this up tomorrow. That has been well used.
Pull out our favorite dry brush.
I can't, it won't focus on it. The camera refuses to believe it exists. Manual roto onto it. There we go. Look at the state of that. How old's this?
Not that old, actually.
This is older than me.
No, it's not.
It's like a badger's arse.
So once a dry brush is a dry brush, it's only a dry brush. That's why when you're miniature painting, you buy a separate dry brush.
That sounds philosophical almost.
I don't clean out my dry brushes, obviously. It just makes them work better. And if you're dry brushing correctly, it's dry.
It looks like a puppet. You can just see it in shot a little at the bottom.
So the other trick is that this didn't come from the dollar store, so the hairs aren't falling out.
Oh, okay, so it started life as a decent brush.
Yes. If this was a dollar store brush, it would be toast, and it would have lost all these bristles by now, right? So I guess that's the takeaway there.
Buy a decent brush and then fuck it up.
Yeah. So we got 2 shades of grass. Just for some variation, and that's also what matches our other hills we've already got. Been on the same glue from I don't know how many projects ago.
It's PVA that's very slightly watered down, right?
Yeah, it's lost some moisture, so I'm gonna put a little bit more in it. Just a cheap bottle of the glue, and I'm also not worrying about going to the edge because I've dry brushed up over it a little bit. It'll still look like rock. It won't look like a mistake.
So as Tim says, we're using 2 different colours of static grass here. A lighter one for smaller patches and then a darker one that's going to cover the entire base. Just sprinkling it on and then knocking away too much excess. And leave it an hour or so to dry, and then using a big soft brush you can just dust off any of the other bits that hasn't glued down and you're all done. Make up a pile of them, and these things have got a multitude of uses. They make great terrain for wargaming. We use these on our Warhammer tables. You can stack them up to make ravines. They work great as islands as well, and again they stack really nicely. You can use them to add a bit of height variation to your D&D games. You could even get some clear risers and use them as floating islands as well. Make a set of these and you have got a multitude of uses for them in your terrain projects. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, do give us a like, it really does help out, and keep it here with a subscribe for more from the Game Chamber.